First up today, we have Professor Ole Martin Moen. He has a doctorate in philosophy and is professor of ethics at Oslo Metropolitan University. He works with both theoretical and applied ethics and led a research project titled What Should Not Be Bought and Sold. This morning, he will ask the question, can we create a drug utopia? Please welcome Professor Ole Martin Moen.
Thank you very much, Dominic, for the introduction and for the poem or the lyrics with which you started this and at least put me in a very good, nice, safe spot for introducing what I have imagined will be today's wake-up talk in a way, the thing that can get your attention going. Now, it is very often said in response to those of us who hold a non-judgmental or perhaps a liberal view towards drugs or drugs policy that it is important to consider the long-term perspective. We must think not just of today, but also of tomorrow and of the future, and of our impact on the long term. And that even though we might do things to improve the condition today, or this year, or this decade, that might not be worth it if we do that at the expense of the days and the years and the decades ahead. We have to be long-termists, which is perhaps a term that some of you have heard. And I think it is important when we discuss drugs to take a long-term perspective into account. And I think the most responsible, or at least the most important long-term way of approaching drugs is to ask, can we create a drug utopia? First, what is a utopia? It literally means a no place, a place that doesn't exist but could exist. But the way the term is often used, most often used, and understandably so, it is as the antonym to a dystopia. A dystopia is a place that is very, very bad. A utopia is a place that is very good. As a parallel to euphoria and dysphoria, we have utopia and dystopia. And one might be tempted to thinking that utopian thought, to think in a utopian manner about issues, is something that is fairly new, that it comes with modernity, that it comes with technology, that it comes with science fiction, but actually, utopian thought is much deeper and much more prevalent, I want to argue, than many of us might intuitively think. I think we should see visions of paradise in religions as clearly a form of utopianism. If we look in the Revelation of John in the Bible, we can read that death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for these things shall all have passed. And we can look to other religions as well. They also have their very blissful visions of how existence can be. In the Islamic paradise, in the Jannah, we are promised, if we get in, material and sensuous pleasures that come to no end. And we have a supply of food, of delicious food, and of all kinds of fruit, it says. And in Surah 32, it says that, and no fruit is forbidden. Now, it doesn't say that no mushroom is forbidden, but it does say at least that no fruit is forbidden. But there is, though, irrespective of the mushrooms, which aren't mentioned, there are rivers of wine, and wine that one can drink in the Islamic paradise, although it cannot be drunk here, according to that view, and we shall be in the company of the most beautiful people we can imagine, and we shall be there forever and ever. And there are similar ideas in other religions. In Buddhism and Hinduism, there are those who hold that nirvana is just the erasing of mind, and therefore the erasing of suffering, dukkha, as it's called. But there are also many theorists in that tradition which hold that what nirvana is actually not just the absence of dukkha, so the absence of suffering, but it is sukha, which is pleasure. It is divinely good, and ideally it lasts forever and ever. So I think that in the period that we are living now, I suspect that we live in one of the least utopian eras of human history. We live in one of those places in history where we might be concerned with today and tomorrow and next year, but where we're having a really long-term perspective and keeping an eye on the potentially enormously good and hoping for that and trying to act for that. That is something that we don't really do that much anymore, and I think we are historically not unique, but we are sort of unique in that we are far less utopian than people usually have been. Now, how does this relate to the topic of drugs and of our responsible drug policy, or how we should think about drugs? I think one of the central, if I'm going to get one idea across today, this morning, is that we should be careful and we should be critical towards the view that the use of drugs can be justified within, and perhaps only within, what we might call a therapeutic context or a medical context, where the aim ultimately just is to cure illness. And an illness really is when we are functioning or feeling below the baseline level for what is regarded as healthy and normal, and to lift those who are below up to that threshold. Now, that is, of course, a really good thing, but it is important that in the discussion about drugs, we can learn something from the debate that is going on within the sphere of bioethics, which is where I mainly work. And there we have a discussion about what is called enhancement. And enhancement is to use a medical technology or a drug not just for the sake of curing the ill, but for the sake of trying to elevate the baseline, to get above the baseline, and to use technologies to make things as good as we responsibly can with the technologies that we have. And I think we should, with respect to drugs and technology, we should probably be more modest and more conservative than Christianity and Islam and Hinduism, because those visions of paradise might be beyond what we will be able to ever create. But shouldn't we approximate? Shouldn't we try, when we think about drugs and drug policy, to think if it could be possible? Could we create drug experiences that feel enormously good, that are very pleasant, that enhance loving and kindness, but that is able to do so without the opposite, its downside, coming a few days or weeks or years later when the, for example, serotonin system is depleted. Could there be ways that we could actually create a much better world for us, to have much larger levels of well-being for people through the use of pharmaceuticals? And it seems pretty plain to me, as a philosopher, that this is within the very wide sphere of what we call a practical problem. Because what goes on in our minds and in our brains are neurochemical processes. I don't think there's anything spooky in addition to that. So it is a question, really, of neurochemical control, neurochemical manipulation. And I think we should think in approaching drugs and drug policy to try to envision the kinds of futures that we really wish, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren, and to take a long-term perspective on drug policy that is not just about avoiding harms, although that is important, but it is a bit depressing. It's also important to keep one's mind fixed on what we hope for, even though it might not come to fruition. Of course, we might not be able to do these things, but the Christian virtue of hope really is the virtue of being able to put one's eyes on a really wonderful thing, a wonderful state of affairs in the future, and to be able to be motivated by that vision here and now in the life that we're living here. And I think those of us who are interested in drug policy should cultivate thinking about paradisic visions, thinking about how great things actually could be, and not just limit ourselves to thinking about harms and about harm reduction. Because it is truly important for us to have like a leading star within our own mind that really motivates us to get up and get something done and to make the future better. And I think that drugs, being technological ways of hacking our neurochemistry, are really powerful technologies, and they are dangerous technologies. Surely they are, but they are also technologies that offer great hope, and I think that hope is something that we should kindle, that we should embrace, and that we should let warm our hearts. Thank you.